Way back in December, Specialized set us a challenge, and that was to see how much hardcore riding we could do on their new Turbo Levo e-mountain bike. But there was a catch. We only had one battery each, and we were doing it on one of the shortest days of the year. So to complete this, we headed out to the region just north of Nice to see some of the historic downhill tracks in the area and go ride them.
Oh my days.
That's gnarly. It's quite a thing to wake up to.
These tracks were Vouilloz DH, which is one of the original rocky test tracks in the south of France, named after the 10-time world champion. Next up was a much more flowy piece of single track, which headed down to the village of Peille. This was a lot longer, with much more pedalling, but had some really nice technical features thrown in. Finally, there was a 10-kilometer road spin to a trail called Cap d'Aille. Now this was a 1990s World Cup downhill track, really famous for its tight technical corners.
Seb and I did some maths, and we reckoned that with the large 700 watt-hour battery on the bikes, we would just about manage to do 2 runs of each track, given that we had to pedal back to the top each time as well. However, on such a short day, this was potentially going to be quite a hard ask.
The most physical track I've ever ridden.
Because we had a lot of trails to ride in a very short amount of time, it would be really tempting to just stick the bikes in turbo mode and blast up all the hills. But that would really sap the battery. So we had to get the balance right between not using too much of the battery too early and still getting up those hills really quick.
Yeah, this was especially important as we had that final long transfer to the Cap d'Aille tracks, but also we had to do 4 climbs of the Col de Madone, which is a really famous climb in the area. The other part of the challenge is that the tracks themselves are really technical.
Yeah, I mean Cap d'Aille in particular was a World Cup downhill track, and Vouilloz was built to test downhill bikes.
So with all that in mind, at first light we found ourselves at the top of Vouilloz, unpacking our bikes and getting ready for the day.
Oh my days. Don't know where I'm going. Never ridden this track before.
That was
So difficult.
So how did you find it dropping into the first track?
Well, that first Vouilloz track was really tough, to be fair. It was steep, rocky, loose. We're getting used to the bikes as well. I got a puncture a little way down, which was a bit frustrating, and I also started to get arm pump almost immediately, but I'm quite susceptible to it.
It started off okay, but got steeper and rougher the further down we went. And it was a bit of a baptism of fire, to be sure.
to come from just setting up the bikes on the road to drop straight into this first thing in the morning is pretty hectic, but
need another 4 coffees there.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah,
Really tricky to ride blind as well, like not knowing where we were going on that kind of terrain was pretty intimidating.
So then we dropped out into the car park at the bottom of the track, had a little regroup, shook the arms out a bit, and then boosted it into turbo because we had to get right back up to the top of the col in order to hit the tracks again.
So once we got to the top, we headed down the second track of the day, which was a bit easier. We probably should have started with that one, to be honest. It was a lot of fun, much faster, had some quite interesting sections that kind of came out of nowhere, but we have ridden it before, which made it a lot easier. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. That was a lot more fun.
Yeah, kind of knowing what was coming up definitely makes it a bit easier in there. And it was quite pedally as well, so we started to get a bit more of a feel of the bike and the motor in there too. And yeah, heaps of fun down there. A little bit greasy in places because it's still quite early in the morning as well.
So our plan was to go back up the Col de Madone road again, but when we got to the bottom, we kind of thought there was nothing on there that we couldn't ride up on an e-bike, and it's a multi-use trail, so there's nothing wrong with riding up it. We wouldn't do it on a normal bike, but on those e-bikes, we thought we'd give it a crack.
I've done little bits of it on a normal bike before, and it is definitely trickier. But also, I think, given that we had quite a time sort of limit, it was actually faster to go straight back up the trail than it was to loop round and find the bottom of the col. So I reckon it saved us a bit of time.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun as well.
Oh, he's dropped me.
So I just pedalled back up the track we just rode down.
yeah, we made it.
A lot of fun, but we're going to bust back down it again.
Yeah,
Pedal up the road, up the col, and then go and hit Vouilloz again, which is...
the oldest downhill track in Europe.
Hey, sounds great.
Oh, I love this track. So good.
Once we got to the top, there wasn't much time to enjoy the view. We headed straight back down the same track, all the way down, even faster the second time. And then this time we decided, just for a change, we'd go back up the road.
This was kind of because to get to the Vouilloz track, which we wanted to hit again, there was a bit of a diversion we needed to take at the top. So we thought, let's try the road again and try and be efficient as possible. We also wanted to have a little bit of food at this point because we were getting quite hungry.
Take a look as we go through the keyhole. Gross.
Because the trails were so rocky, we'd had a puncture each at this point, and we were getting pretty far behind schedule. So at the top of Vouilloz DH, we decided to kind of get a move on, get down that track again, and head off to Cap Dye.
Fortunately though, because we'd already ridden it, we kind of knew the track a lot better, so there was a bit less stopping, we flowed a lot better as well, and we definitely got down faster the second time. So it was actually quite a lot more fun as well, I think.
Yeah, I massively enjoyed it, far more the second time round.
Yeah, I had a great time down there. I was riding so much better. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot more confident riding it now, but physically pretty knackered, but mentally
much better.
Yeah.
Perils of being Seb's chest strap tightener.
The BO is strong. Woo! Meanwhile, I can't really breathe properly.
After we got down Vouilloz, which was a lot of fun, we were feeling a lot better about things, but we still had that 10k transfer to do and not much time to do it. So we put it all the way up into turbo mode because our batteries were still about half full or half empty, depending on how you want to see it. So battery was much less of a concern than time. So we put it all the way to turbo and blasted along the road.
Quick spin on the road to La Turby. Hopefully they're going to get us a can of Coke because I'm absolutely gasping.
Yeah, maybe a coffee as well.
Coffee? Ain't got time for coffee.
the motor doesn't feel too bad when you're above the 50-mile-an-hour limit as well, so it was quite an efficient way of getting to the next trail.
Yeah, the motor disengages when you get above the 15 mile per hour speed limit, so it feels just like a normal bike, but a bit heavier.
Quite a fun little spin along the road though, very scenic as well. We've got some nice views of the sea coming in.
Just the last little drag up before Cap Dye. I reckon we can do this twice. There's at least like a hand's worth of space between the sea and the sun, which I reckon is about an hour. Yeah. And if we can get down in 15-20 minutes and we can get up fast, it'll be quite a climb, but I reckon we can do it.
From the end of that transfer, there's a last steep bit of road to get to the viewpoint at Cap Dye. Now Cap Dye is like one of the most beautiful places I think in the world. It's stunning along there. So it's a real nice way to sort of finish like a longer middle section of the day.
We had a little time to take some pictures for the gram, and then it was time to head down because it was really starting to get dark by this point.
Can you imagine riding this on like some shonky elastomer 2-inch?
Or rigid.
Yeah. No way.
With like a new seat up.
And having to power wheelie everywhere.
Because it's the 90s.
And neither of us had ridden it before, though we have seen the footage of the 90s World Cups. So we're pretty excited to ride it.
Didn't have this in the 90s.
Whoa! The trail sort of drops in pretty steep and tight at the start and through some big boulder fields and past a couple of landslides. And then the track itself is basically long straight, switchback, long straight, switchback with lots of loose rocks in between.
Yeah, it's very old school riding, very tight corners.
So yeah, I mean it was a ton of fun and you can see why it's such a classic and iconic track.
So thanks to a previous puncture, I had a tube in my back tyre, and despite having a lot of pressure in there, I'd picked up a slow flat on the way down. So I pumped up the tyre as hard as we could, put the bike in turbo mode and blasted up the road, which we thought would take about 15-20 minutes. But after a couple of switchbacks on the road, it was clear my tyre was not holding air.
At this point, well, the sun was already down at this point as well. It was definitely twilight, so we knew that time was definitely of an issue, but we really wanted to get that second run. I was determined that we were going to get down again.
Yeah, so you did the honourable thing and left me and just headed up the road.
So this is the update. Beautiful view, sun is setting. There's just about enough light to ride and I'm nearly at the top. However, got almost no battery left, and worse still, I've flatted and I've got nothing left to fix punctures with.
But I got to the top eventually.
The benefit of me disappearing into the sunset was that I could prepare a spare tube for Seb, and so we did a real quick pit stop, got the bike sorted out again, and then fitted some lights because at this point it definitely was dark.
Yeah.
But we had to go and ride Cap d'Aille again because I wasn't taking no for an answer. So we had one final last hurrah and headed again down the steep, tight, techie start to the trail of the Cap d'Aille.
But we were kind of following each other down, kind of whooping and hollering a bit. It was a lot of fun.
And then yeah, we got to the bottom. Obviously Seb had run out the whole of his battery. Mine was down to like the last 20, 15%. So I reckon in terms of sort of seeing the kind of trails and the amount of riding you can actually get done on an e-bike, I reckon it was a pretty good way of testing them. So there's always people harping on about how they hate e-bikes, and we kind of understand that, but to do a day like we did with all those climbs and all those trails in that short amount of time, because it was such a short day, I'm pretty sure that unless you're an elite athlete, there's no way we could have completed that in one day.
Yeah, I don't think I could have, and to be honest, I was pretty knackered as it was when we finished the day.
There's still plenty of pedalling with an e-bike, and because the bikes are a bit heavier as well, I think on more technical terrain, it takes a lot out of you sort of in the upper body.
Yeah, and we certainly wouldn't have done that technical single track climb if we were on normal bikes on such a long day out. You managed to get to the end with a tiny bit of battery left, whereas I, being a little heavier and having that flat tyre, ran out just before the end of the final climb, which was actually no problem. But we used the whole batteries pretty much. Having said that, that's mostly because we were so tight for time that we were using trail and turbo mode almost the whole day. We almost never used eco mode at all. If we had more time, if we did it in the summer, we could have used those more efficient modes and actually done an even bigger ride.
Yeah, I reckon we could have got a couple more runs of Vouilloz or maybe of the other trail as well, or even an extra run of Cap d'Aille.
Yeah, but for one of the shortest days of the year, that was a pretty epic ride.
I think if there's one thing we would both change about the day, it probably would be to have run an insert, especially in the rear tyres. The trails were super gnarly, rocky, downhill tracks, and we were on trail bikes. So, as I say, an insert or maybe like running a downhill rear tyre would have been quite a good shout, and that would have saved a fair bit of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, boy!
But despite the puncture faff, we had a great day out. We rode 6 fantastic runs, and the climbs were really fun as well. All condensed into one of the shortest days of the year. I think that was one of the best rides of 2018 for me, I reckon.
Definitely a great day out. So that was our epic e-bike challenge. What do you think? Would you have done anything significantly different if you'd had the opportunity? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.